time to get started on the conference call. This is a wonderful topic in that many dealerships today are facing a lot of challenges brought on by a couple things. Aged inventory, we'll call unprotected inventory. Aged inventory is generally defined as any merchandise in the dealer's stock that is over 12 months without a sale. And that is getting tough. It's not only General Motors, but all manufacturers are getting more restrictive on return privileges, and they're also at the same time reducing discounts. So not only are they, another favorite one of mine recently was the General Motors reduction in the margin in the 687 account because of the discounts, because they said that they were going to come out with a lifetime warranty on certain products and needed to have the warranty offset by the reduced margins for the dealer. So I'll tell you one thing I've learned about these dealer programs. They're going to change. Today's program doesn't mean it's tomorrow's program. And we have to play by their rules. So all of these program changes are coming about, but generally they all have a pretty common theme revolving around reduced privileges to return merchandise. But for the next several moments, I want to focus in on the inventory that has been there over a year, and in the General Motors case, 15 months. But let's look at aged inventory that you have on hand that is over 18 months without a sale, and this 18 months inventory is also not protected. What do you do with this stuff? It just sits there, it builds, and at the same time, many states require personal property taxes be paid on it every year, and there is a cost in shelf space. How do we count it? Inventory track. So these things do have a liability, an untold liability, but they're sitting there on the shelf. After 18 months, the chance of selling that item is below 5%. Now, when we're talking comparing it to the lottery, yeah, there's still 5% chance, but that always is going to decrease. So for the most part, this inventory is a waste. The inventory is not productive. The likelihood of selling it just isn't there. It doesn't exist. So what are we going to do with this inventory? And especially the unprotected inventory. Unprotected meaning if you're a GM dealer, the RAM, Retail Inventory Management Program by the manufacturer, if under certain conditions, will protect the inventory that can be returned to the manufacturer without penalty. And that merchandise, you have to still track it, but it is what I call protected. The unprotected merchandise, and we look at that, and this merchandise might have been out there 10 years, 5 years, and still sitting there, collecting dust, being counted every year, taking up space. One of the shows I'm a channel flipper, so one of the shows I flip through occasionally, I see it's called Hoarder, and it's hoarders, and these people don't want to throw anything away. They just keep hoarding and adding more to the stuff they're laying around their house, collecting dust and having no living space. Instead, they can't get rid of anything. Well, no dealership is going to be doing anything productive being a hoarder. And we sure don't want to collect parts. What if someone 20 years from now wants that thing? Well, we're not going to become hoarders. It's just not in the cards. So when we're looking at this inventory, I suggest a standardized action plan. And first of all, if that merchandise is non-saleable, the package is open, it's been put on, it's an electrical part, it cannot be returned to the manufacturer, or a dealer wouldn't consider it saleable if they purchased it. So if they would look at it, the package is opened, there's paint on the fender, the mirror is there, but it's been repainted to match a car that never got picked up. These are items that, let's call them the non-saleable, non-returnable. Use your parts policy, get rid of them, and get them out of your inventory. They're not, the loss is already there. It's best to just admit it, dispose of it. Now, when we dispose of inventory like this, I like to have that inventory verified. And by that, I mean that it's first identified, put on the list, and then it is verified by another member of management. So you have two signatures signing off this merchandise is non-saleable. Take that stuff then after it's double verified and damage it, put it in the dumpster. The other category is packages and items that are saleable. They're non-protected. They're in the inventory, and they must be disposed of. And those items, the companies I recommend we use are Dealer Mine. That's Dealer, M-I-N-E. The ADP program, Cash Discovery, and OE Connection. OE Connection is something a lot of people are very familiar with, and if you're a General Motors or Ford, especially familiar with. But let's use the GM. On the GM side, your OE Connection, I'll throw this in there, that is co-op fundable. And you should check and make sure you're getting your co-op funding for that on your advertising account. But back to the story, these sources will help you get rid of that inventory. Now, I like to start with a discount of 52%. That means that any item in there to another dealer will be listed at only 52 cents on the dollar. And why do I like to be that aggressive with it? Again, it's frozen capital. I don't believe it's going to do anybody any good. And I do understand the aged inventory list isn't perfect. You're going to find items on there, and you have to always be cautious. You're going to find item on this that, hey, that's not been here that long. Why is it showing aged? Because the aged inventory is going from the last sale date. And sometimes that number is skewed. I've seen where dealers have transitioned from one DMS to another DMS. And these transitions, the last sale date doesn't show correctly. So then that gives a listing of the aged inventory that is not accurate or correct. These items, once they're found, they're listed. Be sure that even the list that's being uploaded shows the last sale date. I've been in dealerships where they're paying good money to list on OE Connect their old inventory, and only to find out they've only shown 20 or 50 numbers of old inventory because the list is being uploaded inappropriately and they have the wrong list. So these are items to be concerned about, items to show accurately on it. Be sure that it's the correct items. And then the last thing on this best practice list is once that item is sold, guess what your retail inventory management program wants to do? And it's been here 5 years. Wow, it's starting to move. Let's bring one in under REM. So you have to, when you're discounting these items and that item is sold, you have to take an appropriate action to be assured that the inventory won't be coming back in, being recommended as stock item. Now, some people will take and use a return function. Some people will so it doesn't show as a sale. Some people will use the delete button. And once that item is sold on the discounted inventory, they will delete that part number, so then it'll have to requalify for consideration with a good lost sales tracking program. Lost sales would take another 15 minutes conference call, good conference call topic for the future. But right now, a lost sale, let's just define it as when a technician asks for a part, not a trim piece, not a fender, a part, and the part is not an inventory, then that should be tracked as a lost sale at the time that happens. So back to the inventory, old inventory, which is the topic of today's call. I know that the margins are getting thin. I know that the future, as far as the manufacturer, they're going to continue to reduce the return privileges and margin. Now, where are we going to get the funding to handle our aged inventory aggressively? Well, I believe everyone should be considering a moderate matrix program where the lower priced items have a higher gross profit margin to offset these costs. These transaction costs on aged inventory are selling items below cost. We can't just continue to look at this old capital, leave it sit there, and not realize there is a loss that's going to be involved. At least we want to get as much as we can and not have that loss be 100% just sitting there year after year. The concern has already happened. Action is required to aggressively deal with it and control it. So let's review a couple things. When it's non-saleable, the package is damaged, cannot be resold, use your policy account and destroy it. If it is saleable but non-protected, then we get aggressive with these other vendors and dispose of that inventory as quickly as possible to get what we can out of it and turn that into cash. All right, let's open up the lines and ask for comments or questions.
You might already went over this. I got in a little late. What about non-returnable, old non-returnable parts?
Old non-returnable items, such as what?
have a list, but, some of it's like oil and old oils, stuff like that. There's a lot of parts that are...
Yeah, if you have non-returnable items and they're aged, then you have to seriously consider, if you're mentioning oils or chemicals of any kind, those are just best to be locally disposed of, because by the time the hazardous freight is considered, it is not worth even selling.
Okay, but
now,
so how do you account for them, though? Excuse me. How do you account for them mathematically in accounting? How would you account for those to the accounting department?
I would take it through the parts policy account.
Okay.
And invoice it item by part number, have that double verified. 2 members of management need to sign off to get it there. And then parts policy those items and be sure they're disposed of properly, where you're not having people seeing today's a day to go paneling through the dumpster.
Okay, is that the, what accounting number is that, do you know, on the GM statement?
67E on the policy for parts.
Okay, 57E.
67E,
Sorry.
like echo.
Okay, I apologize.
No
you're
problem
breaking
at
up.
all.
You're breaking up a little bit on my phone. I'm sorry. Okay, so I have another question. You were talking about over 18 months is where you would start if you have a lot of overaged inventory without a cell and it's not protected. Yes. And then you said you defined what was not protected a little bit more and what do you do with this stuff. And then you talk about OE connection, which is co-op fundable. For someone that's new overseeing the department, what is OE connection? I know it's a GM function, but what is it?
OE connection is your parts locator that is in the parts department. So it's a system where a dealer can enter in a part number and see what dealerships have that part around your area.
Okay.
And they show as an option old inventory, so you can have a option where you can list your inventory that's aged and get aggressive and have custom discounts for it. So you could set that system up if it's over 18 months, 52%. If it's over 30 months, 62%. And the reason I like the 2%, like 52, 62, is a lot of people will they'll give a 50% discount.
Right.
So if you give 52%, then your part will go to the largest discount.
Okay, if you're unfamiliar with how that system works for me, so they have an option in that OE connection. You're saying that you can list your inventory that's aged, or does it automatically list it for you?
No, it's not automatic.
You have to list it in there. You have to physically put it in there.
Nope. They will scan your parts inventory list.
Okay.
As you designate it and automatically show it.
Okay, great. Okay, good.
And I'd be happy to discuss that further with you and give you more information on that individually.
All right, thank you.
No problem at all.
Rob and Tamela, this is Bruce.
Yes.
We covered that with Bill when we were there, but we'll talk further on that.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, and if anyone wants to have any other issues to discuss, just press the letter 1, or number 1, I'm sorry, and Mike, our moderator, will see your hand is raised, or right now the lines are open, and you can just casually make comments or questions.
Hey, Rob, it's Tony.
Tony, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. What about a scenario where a dealership went through a buy-sell and we're under new ownership, and they have a fair amount of inventory that are quote-unquote penny parts or have no cost or represented by 1 cent that they sort of got for free because the previous owner wrote off. Is that inventory, obviously with the cost of a cent or really no money, that's revenue if we get rid of it, even if it's at a discounted rate, correct? What are your thoughts on that inventory?
Well, sooner or later, I had, when I get into inventory like that, one of the things that I think is a wonderful, let's call it a loophole that works extremely well on this very, very old stuff. If it has a core on it, then you can turn it in to the manufacturer and receive the core credit. There's no restrictions on renumbered items or the box is damaged or whatever. So when you have an item that has a core on it, you can send it to the manufacturer without restriction and get the core credit. Some of these computer modules, the core credit exceeds the inventory value.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I think my guys, you're already on it.
You can't send Chrysler back that way unless you have eligibility.
He's saying you can't send Chrysler back unless you have eligibility. Are we mainly focusing on GM today?
Well, no, every manufacturer, you're not sending it back as a returned part. What I'm saying is you send it back as a core.
The core has
like it's an old part.
Yeah,
just the core value, and you'll receive the money.
Okay, he's disagreeing. He's saying that the core has to have eligibility with Chrysler.
It does.
That's what he's saying. So I don't.
GM is right, but Chrysler.
Chrysler has to have eligibility before you can send the core back.
Okay. Well, I'm not familiar with that policy.
Okay. Well, we'll need to find out. I'll talk with you later about it to find out about it.
That sounds wonderful.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right. Well, thanks for attending the call today. It will be recorded and emailed to everybody that participates. I appreciate the active questions. Great job for everybody. And it's a timely topic, and it's going to be for the future important to deal with this inventory. Wish you all a great day, and thanks for attending. Bye-bye.
Great. Thank you.